Oh boy, so this is something that is absolutely hilarious. Now, we already know that Dave Rubin is a massive sellout. So, obviously, he used to be on the Young Turks, and then he went from being a liberal to turning into someone who left the left, being on PragerU, and had this sort of transformation because, quite obviously, he saw that there was more opportunity on the right to really have this better career. And so he decided that the best way to go about that would be to actually, become right wing, turn into being right wing, because that is going to be the most beneficial for him in terms of being able to continue his career, build up his career, and to, make money and sort of everything that comes with it. Because when you're talking about a career, it's not just about making money, it's also about other things, whether it be how well known you are and different things like that, and being able to do shows. And nobody really cared that much about Dave Rubin when he was on the Young Turks. He really wasn't anything much. Apparently, all he had was a half an hour show every week, but he would also guest host on the Young Turks every once in a while. So he was going nowhere pretty fast, is essentially what was going on. He he then became, had the Rubin Report, and it is what we know now. But we really have something that is absolutely hilarious here to look at. So there was this article that I didn't end up talking about, but I'll talk about a little bit here. There was this article done by Data Society that made this like big ass web of guest appearances on the Rubin Report, I think, or not the Rubin Report. Sorry, it has like a bunch of different. It just basically has a bunch of different names, and then it has a fuck ton of lines and webs, and it's to draw these connections between these online figures, and it has people like Dave Rubin in it, has Jordan Peterson in it, Blair White. It has some sort of irrelevant people in it too. Like it has a dude named Braving Ruin whose channel was, I think, deleted. It has, I don't even know who Coach Red Pill is. It has Sargon in it, of course. So it's sort of a weird thing, no doubt. I don't really understand what the reason for this was. Making this super weird ass web was like a kind of a random thing to do. Um, it's called the Alternative Influence Network on YouTube. It says the graph is a partial representation of collaborative connections within the Alternative Influence Network, a network of controversial academics, media pundits, and internet celebrities who use YouTube to promote a range of political positions from mainstream versions of libertarianism and conservatism to overt white nationalism. While collaborations can sometimes consist of debates and disagreements, they more frequently indicate social ties, endorsements, and advertisements for other influencers. Each line indicates that two connected influencers appeared in the same YouTube video during the period of January 1st, 2017 and April 1st, 2018, just serving as guest, host, or collaborators. The size of nodes are determined by the number of other influencers with whom they connect, demonstrating how much a given influencer serves as a conduit for viewers to other influencers, to the alternative influence network. The colors of nodes are determined by their total connectivity within the network or how close the influencer is to all other influencers. So it's got this really big ass kind of weird web where it attaches everyone from people like Stefan Molyneux to Paul Joseph Watson to Milo Yiannopoulos, and it's basically creating this web saying that there's this kind of alternate influence. Of course, Destiny is also in this one, which is weird because he's fiercely against them. But the idea that like it's the YouTube, the fact that it's alternative media in and of itself is bad, which is, I'm not sure if that's what this article is trying to get at, but I want to say that if it is, that is a horrendous, horrific take, because the idea that the fact that it's alternative media is bad in and of itself is ridiculous, because having the alternative source of media is actually one of the best things that there is, because it allows for actual thought to happen and not just corporate media garbage where the media is controlled by corporations because they're their donors and controlled by Washington, and they are just going to spew talking points that essentially promote and maintain the status quo. So Dave Rubin was not very happy about this. He was pretty angry about this. He went off on an absolute tweet thread where he went on a tirade. He says, first off, it's flat out partisan bullshit, every word of it. Let's just be 100% crystal clear about that. It was designed to scare and intimidate. Many of the people included, at least the ones I know, have hugely varying views on abortion, gay marriage, taxes, immigration, and more. Well, that's funny. It doesn't look like many of those do. But here's something else that I wanted to touch on with Dave Rubin, just really quickly. He seems to mention that he's anti-death penalty, pro-choice, and pro-gay marriage, and acts as if that makes him left-wing and not right-wing. As if those are litmus test issues. As if you can believe that there should be... I don't know what his position on the minimum wage is, but he's definitely someone who I believe is for a flat tax. He says he supports single payer, but describes Obamacare, but then shits on Obamacare. So, as if those positions are litmus test issues is hilariously laughable. I always see that. I just want to mention that. But here's something that is absolutely hilarious. This is really, really cringy. So, basically, he sent out this tweet responding to one of the authors, I believe, of the tweet. He said, of course, any representative from Data Society, including the author, is welcome on my show. She can also bring George Soros or anyone from Open Society, which appears to have funded the study. Wow. Wow, dude. Wow. Okay. You're really going to talk about people funding shows? You're going to be the one to talk about people funding shows and go after them for that? Dave fucking Rubin is the one shitting on people for having shit that's funded. And I don't even know if it's funded by Open Society or not. It may or may not be. But the point here is that Dave Rubin is the very last person to talk about this. And I'll tell you exactly why. So, obviously, he got a lot of patrons. He has a lot of patrons that he was able to gain from his right-wing followers, of course. But it was also revealed that he was actually getting money from the Koch brothers. So the Koch brothers are obviously massive billionaires who they got their wealth from fracking. So therefore they want to be libertarians because they don't want environmental protections against fracking. Because what happens if there are environmental protections against fracking? Well, their profits are going to take a massive hit. So they have a fuck ton of cash. So what do? They buy out our elections by spending enormous amount of cash to get out their influence and push the ideologies that they want. And so we found out that Learn Liberty did a sponsorship with Dave Rubin. What is Learn Liberty? Well, it's actually an offshoot think tank. This is how the Koch brothers do it. Basically, there's the Institute for Humane Studies, which is like the center of all of these offshoots. So there's the center, and then it gets funneled cash from a shit ton of people, one of whom is Charles G. Koch, who has donated literally millions upon millions of dollars to the organization. And so Learn Liberty is one of the offshoots. And Dave Rubin, which I'm surprised about this, honestly, he actually admitted to this. He did an interview with Playboy, and I had actually talked about this before, but he actually responded to this claim because the person asked him about it. So I'm going to read you guys this from Playboy. It says, Cedar accused Rubin of being on the take, a programming tool of the fiercely capitalistic Koch brothers. The criticism is linked to Rubin's partnership with Learn Liberty, a libertarian subsidiary of the Institute for Humane Studies, which has received funding from Koch family foundations. Quote, Learn Liberty sponsors an episode per month, which we announce at the top of the show. They have thousands of donors. They have no control over our content and have never asked me to do or say anything. For the record, though, I'd be happy to have the Koch brothers on the show, just as I'd talk to George Soros or any other interesting, influential people. So here's something hilarious. I actually never criticized him for them having control over what he said. My thing, and I think everybody else's thing, was he knew to get that money, he switched his ideology. That's essentially what it did, because there's a shit ton of right-wing funders who are down, like, whether it be the Wilkes brothers, who are Bible literalists, who own the Daily Wire, or it's the Koch brothers, or all the other fucking right-wing billionaires. But here's what's hilarious. This goes on to say, flatly denying that his talking points are for sale, Rubin admits that Learn Liberty has given him a list of suggested guests, some of whom he's booked, like economist Deirdre McCloskey and Georgetown law professor Randy Barnett. And he's had those people on, I think, like multiple times, if I'm not mistaken. If not multiple times, at least once. So the idea that Dave fucking Rubin is calling someone else out for selling out is hilarious, because he is a huge sellout, and he like dug himself into a hole when it wasn't even necessary, because he literally admits that they gave him a list of suggested guests and that he booked multiple guests of those. So this is absolutely hilarious, but let me know how hard you laughed at this.